Oh,
Okay.
okay. Good
Right.
morning. I am Jenny, and I am here with co-host Jennifer and Lisa. Welcome to BrailleBlaster, Braille transcription software. Today's session will be recorded and shared through the Past Project YouTube channel in the coming weeks. This session is also live captioned. Out of respect for other attendees, participants will be muted, but if you have a question, please type them in the chat box, or if we open up for questioning at the end, feel free to unmute yourself and ask. We will share any questions typed in the chat throughout the session. In order to earn ACV REP CEUs or PGPs, you will need a beginning code and ending code for this session. The beginning code is Braille. Our presenter for this session is William Freeman from APH, and it's all yours, William.
Okay, great. Hi, everybody. Thank you all so much for coming, for being here. And in just a moment, I'm going to share my screen, and we can jump into BrailleBlaster. But first, what I would ask is I just want to find out, we've done webinars all over the country in different places and remotely. And so my first question would be, and if you can, please just throw it into the chat. Have you attended a BrailleBlaster webinar before? So no, we've got a couple yeses, a lot of no's. Okay. This is good. I'm going to recycle some jokes. It looks like, yeah, it looks like we're getting overwhelmingly no. The people have watched the videos, but we've got a couple people that have attended the session before. Okay. Well, thank you so much, everybody, for responding to that question so quickly. So what I am going to do today is first I will, if you have BrailleBlaster already downloaded, go ahead and follow along. If you do not have BrailleBlaster downloaded and ready to go, don't worry about it. You can just watch the webinar. I'm going to be describing what I'm doing as I'm doing it, and we'll go over it. We'll go slowly, and I'm going to keep the chat open, and I'm going to be responding to you all. So if you've got a question, put the question in the chat, and I'll do my best to get it answered. If one particular person's having a lot of trouble, I might have to say, like, okay, just follow along and email me afterward. But for the most part, if you're interested in something, hey, can you talk about this? Hey, can you talk about that more? Or can you go over this again? I'm happy to do that. And we're going to just go over the basics very quickly. Then we're going to go over where BrailleBlaster really shines, which is in opening supported file types. And I'll share a file through the chat with everybody. Hopefully that works. And we're going to just try out some different files, see how those files convert, and hopefully folks will see that even if you've never used BrailleBlaster, even if you don't like necessarily what you see today, which I hope you will like it, but even if you're not really into it, you can still get use out of BrailleBlaster. You can still open these supported file types, get some good quality Braille very quickly with little effort, and get it to your students and the people that need Braille. So we'll go over all that, and then at the end, we will close with some math. So I'm going to stop sharing my video, and I'm going to start sharing my screen. So let's go ahead and share my screen. Should have my screen up, and I'm going to open BrailleBlaster. I really hate how Zoom completely changes the interface whenever you share your screen. There's always this moment of panic, like, where's the chat? Where did all the people go? All right, so I've got BrailleBlaster open. One thing I'll address right at the top is right now there are two versions of BrailleBlaster. So I'm going to go to brailleblaster.org, So I'm sharing the screen right now with BrailleBlaster.org. And if you go to download, you're going to notice there's some things going on up top. So you've got download BrailleBlaster at the top, and then below it are stable, beta, and version 2. So stable and beta right now are the same. Right now they are both version 1.1.26. So they are the same. Now version 2 is what's special. And now version 2 is what's coming. And I'd like to, if we get time today, to go over version 2 and some of the differences. If folks are interested in that, please, make it known, and we will cover it as we can. If you're noticing differences between the behavior of the things that I'm doing, and then you're trying to do them on your computer, and you're getting a different result, odds are you have version 2. And version 2 is great. I think it's a step in the right direction, but it's still an early process. And so we've kept version 1 around. They're largely going to work the same, but version 2 is where we're going, and eventually it will overtake version 1 and be the only version of BrailleBlaster. If I could, if you don't mind, through the chat, could you put in, please, are you a transcriber? Are you a TVI? Are you a paraprofessional? What is your relationship to Braille, if you don't mind? All right, looks like a lot of TVIs. That's great. TVI and transcriber, BLV consultant, paraprofessional. Awesome. A couple people watching together. That's great. Okay. So it looks like it's almost overwhelmingly TVIs, and that's something we are aware of. The majority of people using BrailleBlaster today are TVIs. It was originally BrailleBlaster was originally designed for transcribers, and we're finding TVIs are really flocking to it, and that's great. Our whole goal is to just get more Braille out there for people. And so part of what's happening with version 2, and it's not there yet, so I'm not suggesting jump on version 2 right now, but part of the goal with version 2 is to refocus BrailleBlaster for that TVI audience. Because right now it's very much focused on transcribers, and that's why I think people get overwhelmed with it. Because as the transcribers in the room can tell you, I'm a transcriber myself, as they can tell you, there's a lot of training that goes into being a transcriber. And a lot of BrailleBlaster doesn't seem clear unless you have that training. And so, yeah, we designed it for transcribers, and it's like, yeah, our users are already going to know all this stuff. And some of them do, but not everybody's going to know all that stuff. So what we're doing with version 2 is kind of focusing more on that TVI audience that knows Braille, but doesn't necessarily know every single little thing about Braille like a transcriber would. All right. So let's get into BrailleBlaster. We'll just go over the basics very quickly because I'm not sure how familiar everybody is. And basically what I want to cover here are the peculiarities that exist in version 1. A lot of these have been fixed in version 2, but you're going to be using version 1 for the near future. So we might as well cover them so that you're aware. The first thing is, so I'll just type this is BrailleBlaster. So I type this is BrailleBlaster. I don't hit enter. I don't move my cursor. All I did was type some text. This is BrailleBlaster. Nothing's happening over on the Braille side. I typed it in the print view. The print view is where your cursor is going to start. And it's where you're going to do all your editing. It's where you're going to do all your typing, applying styles, applying emphasis, all of that. So I've typed this is BrailleBlaster, still no Braille, but as soon as I hit enter, that's when I get Braille. So it takes just a moment to make the Braille. And that's going to be true no matter how long your line is. If I go back up to this line, I'll type in the middle. This is BrailleBlaster's webinar. So I've added this is BrailleBlaster's webinar. Nothing's happening over here on the Braille side. It's still just says this is BrailleBlaster exclamation mark. So when I move, I'm going to click with my mouse below that item, and then it's going to translate. And the reason we did that is while my computer, like I have a development computer, like my computer could probably handle that, translating all the time. But what we found is translating constantly is a real drag on resources, and a lot of schools don't necessarily have the best computers. They have older computers, and they're not going to necessarily be able to handle that kind of load. So what we do is we just wait till you're done, wait till you move out of the item, and then we update. Now there's some peculiarities that happen because of that behavior. So now I'm going to type a second item, and the second item I'm going to type a much longer item. And feel free to follow along if you want. You don't have to type exactly what I'm typing, but just know that I'm going to type a very long paragraph. So this is a second item, and it is going to be much longer than that first item. And you'll probably start to notice that it's all on one line. It's just one long line that keeps going. So I could just keep typing like that, and it would all be on that one line. And that can be annoying. It's not something I think is a great thing about BrailleBlaster, but it's something I think you should be aware of, that that's how it's going to behave. And the moment I move my cursor, it'll translate. And now every line in that Braille view is going to correspond to a line in the print view. So we need to know the margins that it's going to get in the Braille in order to know how to set the margins in the print. We seem to have a problem in the chat. I just get program coding that comes up and no program. It's hard to diagnose what's happening there. I don't know if you've downloaded BrailleBlaster in the past. There's a number of things that could be going on, but I'm probably not going to be able to diagnose that issue during our presentation today. Oh, I moved my cursor so everything translated, but I'm going to put in the chat bb-support@tech.aph.org. So bb-support@tech.aph.org. Anybody that's having like a serious problem, please email that, and hopefully one of our support representatives can get back with you during the presentation. All right. So the moment I move my cursor, everything translates. So that one long line becomes a four Braille line paragraph. And every single line, so this third line, longer than the first item, and you'll probably start, is the exact same over here in the Braille. Longer than that first item, and you'll probably start. So the whole point of BrailleBlaster is, well, one of the points, I guess, is to have these dual views. So you've got the print, you've got the Braille, every single line in the print matches the Braille. And that way, while you're doing your work, you can keep your focus on the print view. And then when you're doing your proofreading, you can go over and check the Braille view. And you can do that, page by page or item by item, whatever works best for your workflow. But you're not constantly having to translate the document, wait for it to translate, look at it, go back to the print to make an adjustment, translate the document again. It's all kind of happening automatically for you. Folks are having trouble downloading version 2. Okay. It's working for me. I'm not sure why that is, but I'll try this after the call. I definitely don't recommend trying version 2 just yet, but thanks for letting me know that, and I'll look at it after the meeting. It might be letting me do that because I'm signed in somewhere as an APH employee. We've had, folks that have been following BrailleBlaster will know, we've made a bunch of changes to our website, and so that may be a symptom of those changes. All right, so now I'm going to type a third item. This is a third item. And so now I've got 3 items. So the first thing I want to do is I want to apply style. So all these items immediately got the body text style, which is just a paragraph. In Braille, it's going to have the margins 3 and 1. So I want to make these list items. So what I'm going to do is I could highlight all 3 items and make them a list. Or if I just want to make one item a list, I can just put my cursor on it and go styles, list, list 1 level, L13. Not sure why folks are having trouble downloading BrailleBlaster. Thank you for letting me know. It does seem to be working on my end, so I can't quite diagnose it. The only thing I can think is there's some issue with the server, but I think you're going to be fine following along. But I do appreciate folks telling me about that, and I'll investigate it more thoroughly after the meeting. So, applying styles, you put your cursor on the item, or you can highlight it, and then you go find the style. So the styles are under the styles menu, and they're categorized. For your basic Braille, you're primarily only going to need the basic styles, which is blocked, body text, centered text, and then some displayed text. But really, you're just going to need probably blocked and bodied text. And then the headings. So cell 5, cell 7, and centered headings. So basically a heading 1 for centered, heading 2 for cell 5, heading 3 for cell 7. And then the lists. And so really list 1, 3, so 1 leveled list will cover you for most things. You could maybe do a 2 level list as well. So there's 2 styles for the 2 level list. You know, the first styles for the first level, the second styles for the sub. So basically the main items is this first item, and then the sub items would be L35. You might also find a use for the miscellaneous styles, but primarily you'll want to maybe use transcriber's note and box. Can I make the screen a bit bigger? I can increase the font on BrailleBlaster if that helps. But unfortunately, I can't zoom in anymore without messing up the way everything appears. So I've made the font bigger. All right. So you might want to use the box style to apply boxes, or the transcriber's note style to make transcriber's notes. But those are basically all the styles you're going to need. The rest of these styles, glossary, exercise, index, notes, you know, if you go to notes, you've got incidental note with heading, incidental note without heading. You know, if you didn't want more proof that Braille has a lot of rules, here's your proof. There are different rules for whether or not an incidental note has a heading or not. Footnote. So you're not necessarily going to need all these other styles. And something we're looking at in version 2 is really simplifying the number of styles available and focusing more on what users need. So keeping the basic, the heading, the lists, and some of the miscellaneous. All right. So for this third item, I want to apply the same style. So I've got this first list item, and the moment I applied this list style, several things happened. The margins updated. So I have the 1 and 3 margins of a list. I got these blank lines because a list is preceded and followed by blank lines. So a number of things happened in the print and Braille views when I applied that style. So now I want to apply the same style to the third item. Now I could do this just by going styles, lists, list 1 level, L13, or I can use repeat last style. So repeat last style, if you go to the styles menu, it's the very first item. So repeat last style, the hotkey is Control R. So I will just use the hotkey Control R, and then whatever the last style that I applied was, Control R will put that style. We'll use that style. And so it's a quick way, once you know what style you want to work with, you can go ahead and set it, and then just Control R, Control R, Control R as you apply your styles and go through. So we have a person who's writing in that they keep losing information. And I'm glad you asked about this. The latest version is 1.27. I think it is. It's either 1.26 or 1.27. It's showing up as 1.26 in the release notes, but I think it actually is 1.27. Anyway, you need to get that version because we had a problem in 0.25 where autosave would trigger at the same time as a regular save. So the user would go to save and they wouldn't realize it, but we were auto-saving at that exact same time, and it would prevent their save from going through. So get the latest version, and that should solve the problem that you're having with it not saving some of your work. All right, so I've applied my 2 list styles, and when I applied that 3rd list style, it removed the blank line between the 2 items. So it knows this is a list item followed by a list item, so it knows to get rid of that blank line that's coming between them. Now, I'm going to do the same thing with the first item. This is BrailleBlaster's webinar, except I'm going to apply a different style. I'm going to go Styles, Heading, Cell 5, Heading. And again, it's going to remove the blank line. It's going to apply the margins. Now I've got my Cell 5 heading followed by my list. The rules of Braille say you don't put a blank line between a Cell 5 heading or a Cell 7 heading and a list. And BrailleBlaster is going to try to juggle all of these rules for you and make that as easy as possible as it can. Are there any questions about what we've done so far, about like working in the print view, about applying styles, or any of the things that we've covered so far? All right, and just keep the questions coming. I appreciate it. I'll try to not be so staggered in my presentation. I'll try to give myself a little bit of time before answering. I realize that can be confusing. But so the other thing that can be confusing is emphasis. So I think folks are going to be used to, if you want an item to be bold, you activate bold. You know, you could go to the toolbar, you could go to the emphasis in the menu, you could use the hotkey Control B, and then you type some text, and then that text will be bold. Well, in version 1, we fixed this in version 2, but in version 1, you have to type the text first, and then you apply the emphasis to the text. So I've typed BrailleBlasters here. Now that I've typed the text, I can go ahead and apply the emphasis. So I can go emphasis bold, and then it makes it bold. I get the appropriate Braille over in the Braille view. I get a representation in the print view. And that's going to be true of all the emphasis. So I can go, I'll highlight first item, underline, highlight keeps going, emphasis, italics. And so you have to type the text first, and then you apply the emphasis to it. So that is one peculiarity in the first version of BrailleBlaster. Now, the other thing you might be interested in the styles menu are the style options, particularly double spaced. So if I want to double space this Braille, I highlight it, and then I go styles, options, double spaced. And then that will automatically double space my text. We're looking at a better way to do this, because I think what folks want to do is they want to say double space this document, and then when they open a document or when they work in a document, it automatically gets double spaced for them. And so that's what we want to do. But for right now, we have this method, and this method is, this is a software term. This method is dumb in that there's nothing smart about it. It doesn't know anything about styles. It doesn't know anything about the rules of Braille. So this method, whatever you highlight, it's going to double space it, whether or not you would ordinarily double space it or not, per the rules of Braille. So that's something to know, is this method will just, whatever you highlight, it's going to double space it. There's other style options. They're probably not going to be as useful. You can set what side of the page something appears on, whether, you know, it's the left page or the right page if you were to open a Braille book. And there's some others, but these are not necessarily as useful. The main one I think folks are going to be interested in is double spaced. So any questions about emphasis or, excuse me, style options before we move on? All right. So we'll go over saving very quickly. Thank you for that question about the saving issue. We were really sorry about that. We went to a new file type and didn't notice this conflict until the latest version had already been put out. But we do think we have it fixed, and we've gotten really good feedback from users since putting out the latest update. We really do rely on users telling us about their experience, because as much as we test this, we can't test it as much as 1,000 users. So to save, you go File, Save, and then what it's going to do is it's going to save it as a BBZ file. So I'm going to just go to my desktop, and I'm going to save, I'm just going to call it webinar file. You can call yours whatever you want. So if you've used BrailleBlaster before, you are going to be familiar with the BBX file. Well, now we're doing BBZ, and we're doing BBZ because it contains more information. And I know folks don't want to get too, we don't want to get too in the weeds, but let's go ahead and cover what's in a BBZ file. And you don't necessarily have to do this on your own computer. I'm going to do it, and you can just follow along, and I'll cover what I'm doing. So I'm going to go ahead and save this to my desktop, and then I'll go back to my desktop. Now I've got BrailleBlaster webinar file right here. I've put it at the center of the screen. What I'm going to do is I'm going to change the name of the file. So I'm going to go rename, and I'm going to change it from not everybody's going to be able to do this. I've set up my Windows options to let me do this. So I'm going to change it from BBZ to zip. And then Windows is going to warn me, don't do that. The file might become unusable. Are you sure you want to change it? Yes. So now I have a zipped folder, and this zipped folder shows you what's inside the BBZ. So inside your BBZ file, we're putting that old file type, the BBX, we're putting that. We're putting a BRF. We're putting what's called a PEF file. For those that aren't familiar with PEF, BRF is to text what PEF is to PDF. So you don't need to know that, but it's neat. But think of it as a Braille PDF. They're not accessible. They're an image of Braille, but they are useful for embossing graphics. And so one of the reasons we moved to the BBZ file type was to make it easier for folks to emboss graphics using BrailleBlaster. We're not done there yet, but that is a part of it. Now, if you've uploaded any images, those will also be included in your BBZ file. And we're not going to go into all of that today, but I just wanted folks to be aware of why we went to this new file type, what it means, and what's contained in it. So I'm going to change this back from zip back to BBZ. Get warned again, and now the file is back and ready to be used. So if you have old files that you made using BrailleBlaster and they're BBX files, go ahead and open them. And then once you open them, they'll get converted to a BBZ. And then you'll have to save them again. And when you save them again, you'll have a BBZ file. I know that was a lot. I appreciate everybody's patience as I went over that. But that is the new file type. And I think it's over the long term, we're all going to benefit from moving to a more advanced file type. So I told you how the BBZ contains a BRF and a PEF, but you don't want to send a student or a parent, here's a BBZ file, change it to a zip, and then unzip it, and then go in and grab the BRF, and then you've got it. Nobody wants to do that. That's too much trouble. So you go to File, you go to Save BRF/PEF. That's going to open up the normal save dialog. Going to go to Desktop. And by default, it's going to want to save a BRF. You can set it to save a PEF, but like I said, PEF is really more for embossing. It's not for people. So if you want to share a file with a person, you're going to want to save a BRF file, and then they can emboss it. You can emboss it. They can put it on their Braille display or their note taker or whatever it might be, and be good to go. Not every embosser can. So can any embosser print the PEF? I have a Phoenix printer. No, not every embosser can print a PEF file. PEF support varies a lot. It's a lot more common in Europe than in the United States. I know View Plus embossers support PEF. And embossing is very complicated. I know that's a weird thing to hear from the BrailleBlaster guy, but embossing is very complicated, and it's hard to know what any particular embosser can do without trying it yourself. So I would suggest try it on your embosser. The worst that happens is that it doesn't emboss the PEF file. All right. Oh, and that's the thing, when you use BrailleBlaster, so let's cover embossing while we're on the topic. When you use BrailleBlaster, we've done our best because we've done testing ourselves and with users. And so when you emboss to your particular embosser, we know this embosser needs a PEF file. This embosser needs a BRF. This embosser needs another file. They're all different. It's really kind of funny how even the same manufacturer will be different. So let's cover embossing. So embossing is going to be under the settings menu. So you go to settings, and then that opens up the settings menu there. And then you click the tab for embosser settings, or you can arrow over to it if you're not using a mouse. So I've reset BrailleBlaster, so I don't have an embosser available right now. I've taken it back to the default. So I need to set up an embosser. So I'm going to click Add. And now I've already set up my embosser with Windows. So my computer already knows about my embosser. So I'll set up a PixBlaster. So I'll go PixBlaster, and then below it I've got Embosser Device. This is where I pick my embosser. So this has all my embossers and printers set up that I've set up with my computer. So I'm going to find APH PixBlaster down there at the bottom, and then I pick my manufacturer. So we have several: View Plus, Generic, IRI, Index, Enabling, APH, and Braille. So I'm going to pick APH. Excuse me. The first one there is PixBlaster, and then I can click OK. And now I have a PixBlaster embosser. Let's say I want to add, I also have a PageBlaster. So let me add that. So I click Add. I type in the name, PageBlaster. I find it in the list of embosser devices. Then I select the manufacturer. So I go to APH. Then I select the model, PageBlaster. So it really is that simple. And I could just keep adding embossers. And then one thing to note, like, let's say your embosser isn't listed. I can't think of ones that aren't listed, but let's say you have a Phoenix. Now, yeah, let's say you have a Phoenix. Right here, so I've picked Enabling Technologies as the manufacturer. The models are gold and silver. Well, it really matters. You wouldn't think it does, but it really matters whether if you have a gold, pick a gold. If you have a silver, pick a silver. If you have a Romeo, pick the Pro 50 if that's what you have. Pick the 25 if that's what you have. If yours isn't listed, you are welcome to try a model that seems similar to yours, but I will be surprised if it works. They're all so different. They're all expecting completely different information. Some rely on us to do the new pages. Some do new pages on their own. Some rely on us for margins. Some do margins on their own. Some expect, ASCII text, and some expect the weird codes. It really does vary. So pick the model that is your model, and you should be good. But let's say, it's not unheard of. We have a ton of embossers at APH. We do not have every embosser. So it's possible that we've done our best. We worked with the documentation from the manufacturer. We made a model for your embosser, and say it doesn't work. You try it, it doesn't work. Or say yours isn't listed. What you can do is you can go manufacturer, generic, And then for the model, we've got text only and text with margins. Text only is if it does loose paper, so like a printer, regular printer paper. Text with margins is if it does tractor-fed paper. I think most embossers are probably going to be tractor-fed. So if it does tractor-fed, like most embossers will, pick text with margins. And then that should work. For the majority of embossers, that's going to work. You're going to lose some features, like you'll lose some control over the margins and things like that. And you'll have to set your margins on the embosser if you can, but it will cover you. And the other thing you need to do, please, if you have any issues with embossing, you need to please contact us at bb-support@tech.aph.org. Sending that back through the chat, because we really do, like, this is a free product and we want to help. We want to do the right thing and be, do good things in the world, but we need your help in return. So when you find issues, tell us about them. When embossing doesn't work, tell us about it. You could have some embosser that we don't have, and then you can help us. You might have to do a little bit of work. You'll write us, hey, this doesn't work. We'll try something on our end, send you a build. You'll install it and tell us, hey, that worked. You did it. Thank you. And then we'll know and we can help everybody else. So we really do appreciate folks that have written in already. And we ask that, as you use it, if you find something, tell us about it. Don't be shy. It really does help us a lot. So I hope I've rambled on about embossing long enough. And there's a ton of settings here that you can mess with. Probably the most important setting is under page properties. It's where you set your page size. So you can pick your type of paper, standard, legal, letter. Most folks are probably going to be fine between standard and letter. You can also set your lines per page and your cells per line. So for standard, it's set for 25 lines, 40 cells. You can set your margins here at the bottom. Whether or not this has an effect is going to vary. Based on your embosser. Some embossers are going to respect our margins. Some embossers are going to impose their own margins. But you're welcome to set this and then try to emboss and see how it affects it. The last setting is interpoint. And by default, it's set for no. If you would like to get an interpoint embossing, just go ahead and set it for yes. All right. Excuse me 1 second. So the next thing is translation settings. By default, you're going to be set for UEB. There's also uncontracted versions of UEB, and there's also UEB plus Nemeth. And we're going to get into UEB plus Nemeth there at the end. So I'm going to leave it for UEB for now. We're the first Braille transcription program made with UEB in mind from the very beginning. And the last thing is OK versus make default. So if you make changes, so to page properties, to translation settings, or any of these page number settings, these are a little more advanced. You're probably not going to need these if you're just making everyday Braille, but they're available if you want to mess with them. So any changes there, embosser settings, those are going to work the same no matter what. So don't worry about that for embosser settings. But for the rest of these, if you click OK, so you make changes and then you click OK, it's only going to affect the current document. So whatever you have open right now, if you click make default, it's going to affect the current document and all new documents going forward. Your old documents are going to remember their settings, so they'll be fine. You've already made something, you've already saved it. It's going to load up with whatever the settings were at that time. But all your new documents will use whatever you've set when you click make default. So that's just a thing to make sure folks know. And now let's get into file types. So I'm going to go ahead and close this. Go ahead and close our webinar file. And then let's get into the first file type. So this isn't something you all have. You're not going to have this file type, but I'm going to go ahead and open it on my end. So I'm going to go File, Open. Sorry, it's taking me a minute to find. All right. So this is a Docx file, and it's one of the file types that BrailleBlaster can open. So before I open it in BrailleBlaster, I'm going to open it in Word. So I'm going to go ahead and open this file in Word. It's called Analyzing the Text. So let's look at it in Word first. So it's not a super complicated file. And I'm going to put it in draft view. And I've modified my draft view to show the styles. You all can do the same on your end. Just search for how do I show styles in draft view, and it'll show you how to set it up the way I have it set up. So I'll put it in draft view. And now the very first item is analyzing the text, and that has the style heading 1. So these are all just from this standard style ribbon that you have in BrailleBlaster. Folks that use Duxbury, you're going to be aware of their, they have their own custom ribbon for Word, and it's really cool. That's not going to work for BrailleBlaster. That's Duxbury's proprietary ribbon. They created it. They put a lot of work, a lot of money into it. So you can use that with Duxbury, and I think you'll have a lot of success with it. You cannot use it with BrailleBlaster. With BrailleBlaster, you're going to just use the standard styles. So heading 1, 2, 3, normal, the list tool here for bulleted lists, numbered lists, and emphasis. So we've got our heading 1. Our next item is just a paragraph with some bold at the beginning. So cite text evidence here is in bold. After that are some list items. These were made using just this numbering list tool found under paragraph in the home menu of Word. I'm using Word 2016, so not the latest, but that's not really going to matter as long as you're within the last several versions of Word. You should be fine, and your experience should be similar to mine. The next thing is a heading 2, performance task. After that is a heading 3, writing activity, persuasive essay. And then we've got 3 paragraphs. So if you don't learn anything else today, if you don't learn anything else at all today, learn this. You can make all these in Word. You could do this, and if you have a mixed group of students, some like large print, some like Braille, you could work in Word, apply the principles of large print, apply the larger fonts. BrailleBlaster is not going to care about the font size. And then you can open it in BrailleBlaster, get your Braille. You're doing that work one time. You're getting your large print document, you're getting your Braille document, and it's all much simpler, much more straightforward. So if you don't learn anything else today, learn this. And if you don't have Word, you can get something. It's called Open Office. It is a free version of the Office suite. There's a free version of Word in there. There's a free version of Excel in there, and it's very good. And we support that file type too. And so you can do all the same things in Open Office without having to pay for Word. So get Open Office if you don't already have Word. But let's get back to BrailleBlaster. So I've got the file here, analyzing the text, same exact file. Going to open it up. And now I get my file. And all those styles have been converted over for Braille. So my heading 1 becomes a centered heading. My paragraphs become body text. My bold is retained. All my emphasis is going to be retained. So I've still got that cite text evidence. My list item, those all keep their list style. We keep the numbers. We keep, the bold at the beginning of the list items. Heading 2s, those are going to become cell 5 headings. Heading 3s, cell 7 headings. And then we've got our 3 paragraphs at the end. And so we've maintained our formatting. We've been able to take advantage of all the great features that are available in a program like Word, like spell check and the formatting and all of that. And, very quickly, easily, you just open it and you're good to go. If you wanted to, you could edit this. You can save it as a BRF. You could emboss it. You can check out the Braille Preview, which is sort of like a print preview. So we'll go to that. And the way the Braille Preview is set up, you just get to it, you go File, Braille Preview. The hotkey is Alt-Home. And it's set up like a Braille book. It's not quite as clear with this little 2-page file, but it opens with that first page on the right. And then if you can imagine, you flip it over, and then it's got the rest of the Braille on the left. And so if this were a longer book, you could imagine, what the Braille reader is going to experience as they read and as they flip through those pages. All right. So yeah, this is the Braille Preview. You can't edit here, but you can review your Braille. There's some find tools. There's some skip pages tools that you can use to jump through your file. But it gives you an idea of how your file is going to look when you emboss it. It's very similar to the Braille View, but I think having this Braille book, especially if you need something to be on facing pages, this can help you make sure like you put it on facing pages properly. Now, another thing, before we get too deep in, another thing folks ask about is editing BRFs. So if I go, I don't know where I have a BRF, but if I go File, Open, and find a BRF, so we'll do the quick reference card. So if you open a BRF in BrailleBlaster, it's going to open it in the Braille Preview, okay? So you can't edit it. We cannot edit BRFs. And what you can do is you can open them, you can review them, you can check them out, you can go File, Emboss, and emboss them, and that's within the Braille Preview. So I'm inside the Braille Preview going File, Emboss. You can't edit them. And the reason you can't edit them is because we have Braille Zephyr. So I'm back at BrailleBlaster.org. Up here at the top, I go over to Braille Zephyr. Braille Zephyr is a BRF editor. It's a BRF editor. You can do 6-key entry, so FDS, JKL. You can edit all the BRFs that you ever wanted. You get the little bell warnings for the end of line, end of page, like an old Perkins Brailler. It's a lot of fun. It's free. There's versions, just like for BrailleBlaster, there's versions for Windows, Mac, and Linux. So download the version for your operating system. If you're on Windows and you don't know whether you have 64-bit or 32-bit, you probably have 64-bit. The majority of computers are 64-bit, but unfortunately, they continue to sell 32-bit computers, even though they're not as good. I don't know why they still sell them, but if you have one, ask your administrator to upgrade you to a 64-bit computer because they really are not as good. So anyway, you probably have a 64-bit computer. So that's how you edit BRFs. All right. So that's Word documents. I think it's pretty straightforward and clear, like which styles you can use and how you can open these Word files. Now let's get to something else I think that's really cool. So one of the biggest things about teaching Braille is teaching everyday Braille. Reading Braille all the time, learning new words, making it a part of your daily life. And BrailleBlaster can be a part of that because what you can do is you can go find a website. So I'm going to go find a website. Here's a good one. NASA will try to stow away its leaking asteroid sample tomorrow. So we'll go to that. This is a nice little science article. And I'm just going to right-click on the page and go to Save As. So I've just right-clicked on the page, gone to Save As. The hotkey is Control-S. I'm using a browser called Brave. This is going to be basically true whether you're using Edge or Chrome or Firefox, or if you're using Safari. It's going to be basically the same, but you just go File, Save As. I'm going to save it to my desktop. And then once it saves, it does take it a little bit because it's saving pictures too. We don't need the pictures. I'm going to go ahead and close analyzing the text. So I'm back in BrailleBlaster. I'm going to go File, Open. I'm going to go to my desktop. NASA will try to stow away its leaking asteroid sample tomorrow. is the file. So you want that HTML file. And then just like that, it opens the web page, it formats it, and now I've got a lot of Braille. Now, not all this Braille is useful because it's got all these links, it's got all this text, if you're using a regular browser, it'll have ads, so there's a little bit of work on your end. So you'll go in, you'll highlight what you don't want. So I'm going to get rid of all that at the top. And I'm going to get rid of all that at the bottom. And there's quite a bit of material. And now, just like that, I've got a nice, concise 3 Braille page article that's been formatted and translated. And I can emboss this, I can save it. And yes, I'll show this again. I can save it, I can emboss it, and you're ready to go. And I think what's great about this is, you're trying to teach Braille, you're trying to teach how to use a screen reader, you're trying to teach spelling and math, all of this, all at once. It's so much that you have to teach. Well, what's great about this is you can isolate the Braille. You can get that web experience. You could not edit the page like I just did. You could leave the page as is. And now you can give a young kid who's maybe not as familiar with their screen reader yet, you can kind of give them that screen reader experience without the hassle of having to use the screen reader, of giving them an idea, hey, here's how the website's going to appear once you start using your screen reader. So I think there's a lot of benefit to this. Now, I will say, this isn't going to work on every single website that you try, okay? There's a whole lot you can do with HTML. I wish there was an easier way to say, like, it will work on this site, it won't work on that site. But basically, it's going to work most of the time. It's not going to work on, a very complicated social media site. Like, it's probably not going to work on Facebook. It's probably not going to work on Twitter. You can try it. I recommend, try it. What do you have to lose? Like, BrailleBlaster's free. The web browsers are free. Yeah, go ahead and try it. But I'm going to recommend you try it with news articles. News articles are going to be mainly text, and I think you're going to have a much higher hit rate if you limit yourself to news articles. Let's do another news article. So, thought we had one about. Well, I thought we had one about the water on the moon, but let's do the seed-spitting drones rebuild forest from the air. And we'll try this one. And so we'll go save as, and we'll go ahead and save it on our desktop. So it really is. So you go to the website. I've gone to Engadget. I wanted to pick something that wasn't controversial. And generally technology isn't that controversial. So we'll go here. I'll just right click. If you're not using a mouse, you can just use the context key on your keyboard. It's right next to the control key on your on the right side of your keyboard. So it'll be between Windows and Control. And then you can go down to Save As. The hotkey is Control S. I don't think that's going to be universal, but anyway, once you have it, you just click Save As, opens up the dialog. It might save it automatically. I have my browser set to ask me where to save things. Yours might be set up to save it automatically. If it is set up to save it automatically, it's probably saving it to the downloads folder. So you'll just right click Save As, it'll save it for you, and it'll put it in the downloads folder. And then you can just point BrailleBlaster to the downloads folder to open it. So, all right. So we got it saved, and now let's try to open it. I have not tested this one. I don't know if this one will work. Like I said, we work with a lot. Oh, I didn't actually save it. I talked quite a bit about saving it and didn't. Okay, so we'll save it. Take it a second to actually save. Now that it's saved, we should be able to open it in BrailleBlaster. Yeah. So there we go. And I recommend it, like if you see something that especially something that's going to excite that student, something they're already interested in. I know there are kids that are reading Braille and also are really into video games. So if you find an article about a game that that kid likes, save that article, open it in BrailleBlaster. Now they've got Braille. Now they're reading and learning about something that they care about. And I think it's going to help reinforce all that everyday Braille that is so critical. And you can edit it how you need to and save or print. And I mean, you really do. You very quickly get a quality document. This is a pretty long article, actually. And yeah, you can edit it as much as you need to. All right. Were there any questions about working with HTML files? While folks are maybe thinking about that, let's say this hadn't opened. So if this hadn't opened, it's not as fancy, but you could literally go into your browser, highlight everything, Control-C for copy. So Control-C for copy, go over to BrailleBlaster, new. Of course, I'm not sure why that happened, but that's the way of software, the moment you try to show anybody. So we'll have a new file, and then we'll just paste it into that new file. So it's not as fancy, but I mean, you still get a quality Braille file very quickly. So definitely either method, especially if you're just working with a really basic text like this. This file is basically all text anyway. The one thing that's going to be different, so I've highlighted this picture, see? There's a picture here. Well, when you save the HTML, that picture probably has alt text. And when you save the HTML, you get that alt text. And that alt text is going to come through into the translation. If you just copy and paste, it's going to copy that picture, but it's not going to really be able to paste that picture. And so you will lose some information if you have to go this way. But it's better than not getting the file at all. So anyway, that's so that we've covered docx, we've covered HTML. Excuse me. The other file type, and we're not going to dive into this too deep because I think we're about to run out of time. And I want to get to math before we run out of time. But the other file type is if you go to Project Gutenberg. So I'm just going to search for it. Project Gutenberg. It's at gutenberg.org. I definitely recommend this website. I'm going to copy it and paste it into the chat. Gutenberg.org. This website's great. It has a library of over 60,000 free ebooks, and these are made by volunteers. And it's a great way to get books into the hands of your students, because like if I go to the frequently downloaded, these are their most popular ebooks. They got free copies of Pride and Prejudice, of Frankenstein, Scarlet Letter, Legend of Sleepy Hollow, Anthem, whatever. You could choose to read that if you want. Beowulf, A Modest Proposal, Alice's Adventures in Wonderland, Metamorphosis. So all sorts of great classic works of literature for free. So you just click on them, activate them with your keyboard, and then you've got several options here. What I'm going to recommend, the majority of these books are going to have an EPUB version. So download that EPUB version. So just by clicking the EPUB link, it'll ask you where you want to download it. It'll give it a generic name, because again, this is all a free service. So go ahead and change the name to something you'll remember. So Frankenstein, and then save it. If there isn't an EPUB version, you can get the HTML version. Now, here's the thing about the HTML version. The moment you click that link, your browser's just going to open it. And that's not going to be very helpful. So what you can do is you can right-click, save link as, and then that will save the HTML, same as the web page. And then you can just name it, save it, open it in BrailleBlaster. So number one, I recommend getting the EPUB. If the EPUB's not available for whatever reason, get the HTML. And normally I would go through the process, but I've done it a bunch, and there's videos available online of this process, and it's going to vary from EPUB to EPUB, but generally, use find and replace, go through the file and clean it up a little bit, and then give it to the student. If you're giving it to the student just to read for fun, you don't even really have to clean it up. If it's just for fun, open it, it's going to be pretty good, and then give it to them and they'll be good to go. And I think they'll be happy to have a book. But if you're going to assign homework or a test or a quiz or anything like that, spend about a half hour to an hour cleaning it up. And I mean, half hour to an hour worth of work to get a free Braille book of a classic work of literature. I don't think that's too much, I don't think that's too much to ask. So that's what I would recommend. Project Gutenberg, get your books, EPUB or HTML, open them in BrailleBlaster, finish them up, get them to your students, and I think you'll find a lot of success with that. The thing I want to make clear with this portion of the presentation is BrailleBlaster can be used to create new documents. So you can go File, New, and create a new document. But where BrailleBlaster shines is in opening documents. So you open a document, you get that, that text, those styles, that emphasis, those tables, you get all that, and then you work with it and you finish it up. If you want to create a new document, yeah, you can make it in BrailleBlaster, but why? Why go to the trouble of making it in BrailleBlaster? If it's a page or two, fine, go ahead, make it in BrailleBlaster. That's not a big deal. But if you're wanting to write a really long test or a really long quiz or something like that, use another program. Use Word. Word has millions and millions of dollars of development from one of the largest corporations in the world. So use Word, use OpenOffice to create your initial document, then open it in BrailleBlaster and finish it up. And I think you'll find you'll have a lot more success when you take advantage, because we've put a lot of work into the opening of these document types. And so I think it'd be great for folks if they take advantage of that as they use BrailleBlaster. Okay. So I think we've got about a half hour left. I think this goes to 11:45. So let's take the time we have left to get into math. I know a lot of folks are going to be interested in math. I'm going to start by saying I'm not 100% happy with where we are in math right now. Okay. We designed math for transcribers, and I'm going to go over some of how those decisions were made. I'm not going to get too deep in the weeds, I hope. But I'm going to go over a little bit how those decisions were made and why, and what we're looking at for the future to make this better. I've actually been talking with a TVI this morning about issues she's been having and questions she has, and it really is super helpful to hear from folks and find out, like, oh, I'm not the only one that finds this annoying. Great, let's get this addressed. So we'll start with the toughest part. Okay, so we're going to start with the tough part. And we're gonna close big, and so hopefully we're gonna close on something you'll really like. But let's get the part that is useful, but there's a learning curve. Let's do that first, and then we'll close on the easier, cooler feature. So I'm gonna start a new document. And so the first thing I think you'll notice when you try to do math with BrailleBlaster is there's not enough keys on the keyboard to do math. So I'll do one. I'm going to actually, could folks tell me in the chat if you use UEB Math, Nemeth Math, or both? And if you use both, I mean you use like 50-50. You're like 50% UEB, 50% Nemeth. Nemeth, both, Nemeth, yeah. What's a Nemeth? Okay. So yeah, it sounds like a lot of folks are using both or Nemeth. So let's go to settings, translation settings, and I'm going to set my table for UEB plus Nemeth. And then I'm going to click OK. So I'm set for Nemeth now for this document. So the first thing I want to do, I want to show is some basic, really basic math. So I'm going to go 1 + 1, and I'm going to press enter. Now, right away, you know, folks across Indiana are spitting their coffee out on their keyboards because that is not Nemeth. That is not Nemeth at all. That is UEB. So why, you know, why I put in math, but I'm getting UEB. Why is that? Well, it's because luckily for us as humans, computers are still pretty stupid. Computers can't understand context. And so the computer doesn't know that this is math. You'd think it would be easy, like 1 is a number, plus is an operation sign. You'd think it'd be easy. And we could sort of try to do that, but we would get it wrong often enough that it's not worth doing. So what we need you to do is first you put in the math, and then you tell us that it is math. So I've put in 1 + 1. I highlight it. I go up to math in the menu, and I go to math translation toggle. The hotkey for that is Control+M. So I highlight Control+M, or I can go to the menu item. And now it's highlighted pink in the print view, and in the Braille view, I'm now getting Nemeth. I'm no longer getting UEB, I'm now getting Nemeth. And so that's how you get math. And for your basic math, it's going to get a little more complicated right now, but it's not going to be terrible for basic math. So let's think of a more complicated problem. Like let's think of 2 times 2. So let's say you want to do 2 multiplication dot 2. Well, there's no multiplication dot key on your keyboard. So to do that, I have to use what we call Ascii Math. Okay, and this is what we're gonna be going over. And so the thing about Ascii Math is Ascii Math was made for math. Okay, it was not made for Braille. You know, it's something that we found being used in the community to create math, and we thought it would be a good solution for BrailleBlaster users to create math in the print view to get quality Braille. But I do think it's important up front to realize that Ascii Math was made, what you're making with Ascii Math is not Braille. You're making math, and then we're taking that math and making Braille from it. So let's do 2 times 2. So in Ascii Math, 2 times 2 is 2 asterisk 2. Then you press enter. And again, right off the bat, you get UEB. So it's translating it as 2 asterisk 2, just like you typed. So I highlight it. I go math translation toggle, and then I get my Nemeth. So now I have 2 times 2. And let's say I wanted to do the multiplication cross. So instead of the dot, I want to do the multiplication cross. So that would be 2xx2. Enter, highlight, Control-M. Now I've got the multiplication cross. Let's go over, you don't have to memorize these, and I'm going to get into it, but we have a Ascii Math Hub that has all of these examples in it. And we're gonna open that up. We're gonna go through that. But first, let's cover some other the more basic examples. So let's say you have a fraction. So let's say I want to do 1/2. So 1/2, this one's easy. It's just 1/2 is 1/2. So highlight, Control-M. And now I've got my fraction over here on the right. Now, here's the doozy. Okay, and this is the thing I want to address that we're going to address in the future, but it is a doozy, and I'm not happy with it, and you're not going to be happy with it. So let's just pull the Band-Aid off and get it over with. We're going to do a mixed fraction. Okay, so for a mixed fraction, so 1 and 1/2, here's what we're going to do. We're going to do 1 space 1/2. Press enter, we'll highlight, Control M. And you're probably thinking that wasn't so bad. That made sense. I got that. And you're right, it's fine. But here's the problem. That space has meaning other than being a space. So that space to ASCII Math isn't a space. Notice when you go over here to the Braille view, there's no space. So let's go back up to one of our previous examples. Let's say you've got a young Braille reader. They need that space around the operator. So you want to do 1 space plus space 1. Okay. So I go back up to that example and I just put my cursor before the plus sign, I press space. I put my cursor after the plus sign, I press space. I move my cursor out of the item so that it translates, and nothing happens. Nothing happens. And it's because you're not making Braille. You're making ASCII Math. And ASCII Math, to ASCII Math, space has meaning other than space. And we're going to fix this. And I'm not going to get into how we're going to fix it. But no, for now and for the near future, when you want to make a space, you have to first put a backslash in front of it. And basically, without getting too technical, the backslash is going to tell it the thing that follows this backslash is what is its normal thing. So the thing that follows this backslash is a space. It's not what you're expecting for, say, 1 1/2. It is actually a space. And so that's how you get 1 space plus 1 space plus. So I realize that's complicated. I realize that's not intuitive. Nobody would have figured that out unless they were told or they read it somewhere. But that is how it is right now. And know that we're aware that it's tricky, and it's something that we are working to address on our side. Now, another thing that comes up with ASCII Math are periods. So let's say you want to do a problem. So let's say you want to do 1 period for the problem number, and then you want to do the actual math. So if you want that problem number, let's say let's just do it. So 1 period. I'm going to press enter. So I've got 1 period here in UEB. If all you want is 1 period in UEB, then you're good to go. You don't need to do anything else. But if you're wanting it to appear in Nemeth, the moment you highlight it and tell us that it's math, something's going to happen. So I'm going to highlight, tell it that it's math. You're going to get 1 decimal. Okay? You're not going to get 1 period. You're going to get 1 decimal. And again, that's because you didn't create Braille. You created math. And so it sees that period as math. And so if you're making Nemeth and you want your problem numbers to appear as Nemeth, you'll need to force the translation. Okay? So the way you force the translation is you type the ASCII, you type the ASCII Braille. So not the ASCII Math, the ASCII Braille. And it's a lot easier than it sounds. It's not ideal. Know that this is another thing we're looking at. But let's say you want 1 period in Nemeth. You would do pound for the number sign. You would do 1 for the number 1, since we're in Nemeth. You would do underscore for the punctuation indicator. And then you would do 4 for the period. And now I'm going to let that translate. So you let it translate. Translates just like UEB. It doesn't know what you're trying to do. So you highlight it. You go up to Tools. Go down to Change Translation. And the first option there is called Direct. So this is Direct Translation. The hotkey is Control+D. And so you just do that, Direct Translation, Control+D. And then that forces the translation. So you get the number sign, you get the number 1. In Nemeth, you get the punctuation indicator, and then you get the period appearing as you would expect. So unfortunately, that is what you have to do for now. I know that's not ideal, but that is how it works right now. All of these symbols, like I said earlier, can be found in the Ascii Math Hub. Real quick, let me address Ascii Braille versus Ascii Math. So for Ascii Braille, you can search for Ascii Braille keyboard. And there's one available from the Iowa Braille School, if I can find it. I'm not using Google. But if you just search for Ascii Braille keyboard using Google, it'll be one of the first things that comes up. And you'll get this nice keyboard that shows you which symbols correspond to which Braille characters. And this is what we're using to create the direct Braille. So if you ever need to force the translation, you can do that. You can also use 6-key input. This is another thing that we fixed in version 2, but for now in version 1, when you go Tools, 6-key input, it's going to open this other dialog, and then you can just type. You can type the Braille and then insert it, and then you get your Braille. So that's another option. Let's get back. So Ascii Math Hub. If you go to Math in the menu and then Ascii Math Hub, you'll get this Math Hub. It's going to open on the examples page. The examples page is my favorite page of the hub because it has most of the examples that you need. So say you need to make a complex fraction. You can just select this example. And then over here on the right, there's 2 boxes. The box on the bottom is going to be the Ascii Math for that particular equation. So for this example, it's parentheses 1, 2, 3, close parentheses, slash parentheses 12 plus 3, close parentheses. And that gives you 123 over 12 plus 3. And now I can go in and edit this. So I can change 1, 2, 3 to 4, 5, 6. I can change this to 55 plus 8. And then that adjusts the Ascii Math, and that adjusts this image that appears above it. So this image that appears above it, this is made using MathJax. And you don't need to know what MathJax is, but all you need to know is it's going to show you the math that you're making so that you know you're making what you think you're making. And it's a good way to learn Ascii Math. It's a good way to practice and check and see that you're doing it the way you think you're doing it. And also it's accessible. So if you're using a screen reader, either NVDA, JAWS, or VoiceOver, you can put your focus onto that image and it will be able to read that MathJax back to you. And you'll know that it's what you think it is. If you have a Braille display, it'll be able to display that Braille onto your Braille display. Anyway, once you have the Ascii Math that you want, another thing here real quick, you can highlight, say I want to add an exponent for whatever reason. So I can highlight 4, 5, 6, and I can go over here to exponent, and then I can replace 4, 5, 6 with that other Ascii Math. So it's real easy to build out an equation just using these examples and then entering them. So once I've got what I want, I put my cursor back in the print view, I click Insert Math, and then it's going to enter it, and it's going to automatically have the math that I want. All right. So I'm going to go ahead and close. So are there any plans to make BrailleBlaster as an Apple app? Not at the moment. So right now it's just available as a Windows or a Mac download. We've talked about making a web app. So if we made a web app, you could use that web app from any device that can access the web. And that's really cool. And it's something we might do one day. I can't promise it or anything, but it's something we might do. The problem that you run into with web apps is accessibility. You just lose so much control because, you know, like now when we program for BrailleBlaster, we know that we're programming for Windows and Mac and Linux. and we know it's a Java program, we control it. When you program for a web app, you're programming for Edge, Chrome, Firefox, Brave, Safari. You're programming for Chrome on Windows, Chrome on Chromebook, Chrome on Android. They're all different, and it's a whole can of worms. Will this ever be available for Chromebook? Probably not unless we go the web app direction, or if Chrome increases their support for Java, which is what the program is based on. So probably I wouldn't hold my breath on a Chromebook version. Yes, you asked earlier about issues with saving documents and losing information earlier. And again, you need to update BrailleBlaster. The version you're on has an issue, and you just need to get the latest version that's available now. And we do have issues with OneDrive. So we do have issues with OneDrive in general. And I don't want to get too technical, but basically, the files in your OneDrive folder aren't actually files. The files in your OneDrive folders are links to OneDrive files. So they're links to a server that has your files. And right now we're asking folks not to use OneDrive with BrailleBlaster. Save your files locally, and then when you're done with them, then put them onto OneDrive. If you want to write in, I think you've written in before, but if folks in general want to write in and complain about that position, it would be helpful, because at the moment, we're seeing a few people are wanting to work from OneDrive. Most people are not. So if everybody really wants to work directly from OneDrive, we can put the time into making that work better. But right now, it looks to be a problem that only affects a few people. And we're literally a team of 3 people. So we have to really focus our energy and effort when we develop things. So yeah, get the latest version, and then I would recommend, even with the latest version, do not save and open your files directly to OneDrive. Save them locally, so to your My Documents folder, to any folder that isn't a OneDrive folder, and then when you're done with them, then upload them to OneDrive. And when you need them again, pull them off of OneDrive, work with them, and then so on. I know that's not ideal, but until we get some better data on how many people are having this problem, we can't. It's a lot of work. It's a lot harder than it might seem on the surface to get that to work. And right now we're trying to focus on the overall user experience. So real quick, before I run out of time, I want to show you all the coolest thing that we have, which is the Spatial Math Editor. And that's something too in the evaluation link. If they've got somewhere that you can say, hey, I love OneDrive, I use OneDrive all the time, and it's critical to my work, tell us that. We really do. Like, anything you can tell me to help me justify things is super, super helpful. And that goes for BrailleBlaster and any APH product. We try to be leaders, but we also, I think, are good listeners. So if you've got an issue, tell us about it, and it drives our development. It helps us so much. But let's get to this last cool thing. So this last cool thing is the Spatial Math Editor. And this was a suggestion from TVIs. We went to a conference, room full of TVIs were like, we need this. This is what we need. And we built it based on their specifications. So if you go to Math, Spatial Math Editor, it's going to open up this dialog. At first, it's just this text box, but you just go up to Container Type, and then you pick, I'm going to pick Math Templates. You can use it for math templates, you can use it to make matrices, and you can use it to make number lines. Let's do math templates to start. So when I pick math templates, I think it becomes a little clearer what this thing is for. So this is going to make a vertically arranged math problem. So first you put in the identifier. So I'll put in 1 period, and then I've got plus. So I'll do 3 plus, or I'll do 33 plus 3. I'm going to go ahead and insert this. And then it's going to space out my math for me. So it puts my identifier, it puts my 33 plus 3. I can open that back up, Math, Spatial Math Editor, Solution, True. So I just go Solution, True in the menu. Now I can add a solution. So now I can do 36 as the solution and click Insert. And now I get my math problem and my solution. Now we can go back, Spatial Math Editor, and we can add more math. So here at the bottom, we can add more rows and more columns. So I'll add another column. That gives me a blank fields. So I'll do problem number 2. Now for the operator, you can do plus, minus, and times. Division is going to be a separate thing, but plus, minus, and times. So let's do times real quick. So we'll do 3 times 3. And that gives us 9. I'm going to go ahead and insert, and then we get that. And then 30 seconds, and I'll do a number line. Spatial Math Editor, container type, number line. You get your fields, you got your count by, your line start, line end, and then you can add an interval. So I'll do a count of 2. We'll start at -2. We'll end at 4. And I'll do an interval that starts at 0 and ends at 2. Click Insert, and then I get my number line. And you can play around with this. We've designed it to be simple when you first start using it. So this is simple and straightforward, and you can just fill it out and it's easy. And then if you want to get more advanced, there's a lot of advanced stuff you can do. If you try the advanced stuff and you don't like it, don't worry about it. Just use the simple layouts. And this also works for Nemeth. And I hope folks like it, and please send feedback. I'll put it back through the chat to bb-support@tech.aph.org. All right. Were there any other questions, or was there closing stuff that we needed to get taken care of?
Yes, thank you so much.
Thank you.
The ending code is BLAST.